Welcome back. The next story is about Mrs. Grant County, Amy Dana, who was diagnosed with Bell's palsy and is spreading awareness about the disease. Reporter Jeff Chu has the story.
When she was due to have her first child in the year 2000, Amy Dana woke up one morning to an unpleasant surprise.
Half my face was paralyzed. I didn't really know what I was doing, what was happening to me, why my face was doing that. So went to the doctor, went to the hospital, and they said, well, you have Bell's palsy. It's a condition that happens. So the whole right side of my face was drooping. I couldn't close my eye. They put me on prednisone, antivirals, and some eye goop and told me to be optimistic.
That's how Bell's palsy became her platform as Mrs. Grant County. She has a Facebook page called Bell's Palsy Strong to bring awareness to the disease she knows firsthand.
Emotionally, you feel ugly. You don't feel proud of yourself. Your face doesn't move like everybody else's, so you're much more critical, where a lot of people say that they can't tell or they don't notice, but you notice. So ultimately, after the Bell's palsy gets better, your muscles can go into synkinesis, where when I go to smile, the eye shrinks down. That's what normally people have to get used to, or that's the only thing that you could really see, or maybe a difference in the smile and not being able to allow the face to make a perfect symmetrical smile.
Amy, who is turning 36 years old, is married to her husband Josh, who she helps with his business in Moses Lake. Her children are ages 14 and 9. In May, Amy will compete in the Mrs. Washington pageant, standing on her Bell's palsy platform in an effort to make a difference with those who have the disease.
If I can help one Bell's palsy patient feel better about themselves and not let the emotional distress of looking at themselves and trying to smile and not seeing them their old self anymore. And I would love to continue to help people.
I'm Jeff Chu for iFIBER 1 News.
Rounding out this week's news coverage is a story about goats, about 1,400 of them. A Soap Lake area farmer is using the goats to prepare his hay fields. Reporter Jeff Chu has the story.
About 1,400 nanny goats are discreetly and dependably munching down the frostbitten grass and alfalfa on Dean Benedict's acreage near Soap Lake. Border collies appear to be getting restless to herd the goats into the next plot. It's easily the biggest so-called mob of goats that most people will ever see grazing in Grant County or anywhere else for that matter. Benedict, who has raised grass alfalfa mix hay on his 50 acres for many years off State Route 28 and Road 19 Northwest, explained how the goats came to graze on his land.
The goats are here because last fall I wasn't able to take the cutting off here, which I would have preferred to do. It would have been fourth cutting on my grass alfalfa mix hay. And I could see that the forecast was such to where it just wasn't going to work, so I decided I'm not going to swath that and have it laying in the windrow all winter. And so I was thinking about possibly putting my cows out there, but I didn't really want to have the cow pies out there and also the foot tracks. So I saw that the goats were over on another farmer's field, and so I got a hold of that farmer, and he referred me to Ray Hulls.
Benedict admits the goats are an experiment that if all goes well, he'll consider inviting back. He says there's a good deal of benefit from goats' natural mowing, which he hopes will produce high-quality hay.
The benefit is removal of the foliage, because if I don't get that foliage removed, it'll show up in the first cutting of 2015 crop. Dead leaf. It'll be brown leaf in the hay. And then the other thing is, what's happening here is the foliage is being transferred and processed into fertilizer through the goats.
Ray Holes owns the goats, part of his mob of about 8,000 head of goats he grazes along the west coast from Canada to Mexico. His Kennewick-based range management company is known as Prescriptive Livestock Services. Holes is considered in the ranching industry a leading authority on goat grazing and management practices.
We're a targeted grazing company. That's our business. We started out ranching, a family, and then bought into goats to manage our own weed program, and it worked really well. And people saw it working, so they kept asking us to try this and that, and pretty soon we ended up building into the business of just grazing goats, and that's what we do.
Meat from the goats will eventually end up on the barbecue. Hull said there is a growing demand for goat meat around the country. For now, their job is to naturally weed and groom and fertilize farm fields without the use of chemicals. The nannies and 2 big white Anatoly Kuvas Akbash mix watchdogs are just part of Ray Hull's workforce. Hull's explained that the dogs are raised from puppies among the goat groups and live with them night and day.
Yeah, as soon as they're weaned from their mothers, they get put into a area where there's typically smaller goats, kids, and then they just grow up as a goat, and they learn to bond with that.
Hull's goats are used at various grazing sites and as far east as Montana. About 400 of the pregnant nannies are expected to drop their kids in March and will be moved back to Kennewick to kid out, as Hull's puts it.
They get handled a little differently, a little more softly, and they manage weed projects mostly. Then we have other groups of goats that are either yearlings or older goats that we use for brush goats or different type of projects where we have to split them into small groups.
Also watching over and managing the goats are 2 Peruvian goat management specialists who were brought in on special work visas. Hull said after they are done with Benedict's land, the goats will next go to the Royal Slope area to graze. Hulls can be contacted at 208-740-9264. I'm Jeff Chu for iFIBER 1 News.
That wraps up our weekend edition. iFIBER 1 News will be back on Monday at 5 p.m. with the latest news from around the Columbia Basin. Thank you for watching.